It's always sad to see your favorite players just right off into the sunset, retire, and practically just end up, just not being there. Football, it always seemed to be sad when Tom Brady rode off in the sunset. Of course, as a Patriots fan, you feel for him, but of course, you feel angry that he won the Super Bowl with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in 2021. But he rode off in the sunset, became a Fox color commentator, kind of the number one color commentator. I don't know why. I guess they're trying to do it like Tony Romo, who is the number one color commentator for CBS, but he's a former player. For basketball, it was sad to see Vince Carter go. I mean, yeah, Vince Carter was a Raptor icon with the slam dunk competition, and then he went to Brooklyn and played for the Suns and a few other teams. He could have played for the Raptors, but he never ended up playing a second tour with the Raptors. But his numbers retired. It was always sad to see him go off to the sunset and all that growing up. And for me, baseball, like Roy Halladay rode off into the sunset. He was that active player when he died. Um, Carlos Zagatto leaving. Joe Carter, yeah, it's always big. And Derek Jeter riding off into the sunset. But for hockey, personally, my favorite hockey player of all time just happened to ride off in the sunset in one of the worst ways possible. So let's talk about the 2003 Colorado Avalanche, why don't we? Hello out there, we're on the air. It's Cutter with NHL time. Tensions blow, the whistle blown, and the pucks go down the ice. Some teams just want to win the cup and do it with a smile. Hey, that is cool. Up on the River Nile. Oh, the good old hockey game. Who will come out on top? Will a team get through the cup by any means necessary? Oh, the good old hockey game. It's the best game you can name, and I'm have no shame. I will simulate those hockey games. Woo! I know you're all thinking it's like the 2003 Avalanche. Well, I'll get to it. So anyway, we're talking about the Colorado Avalanche in this video. I know I did a video on the Quebec Nordiques and explained their history and all that, and didn't include Colorado because that's a different one. But Cliff's Notes is that Quebec was a WHA team that was actually held over from San Francisco. San Fran was going to get a WHA team, but they balked, so Quebec City got the team. And for the entire WHA lifespan, they played their hearts out. Right. They got accepted as one of the four teams to jump from the NHL to the WHA, and it was great to see those guys compete and all that. And then, with basically a French Canadian roster, if you will, they entered into a rivalry with the Montreal Canadiens as far back as their second game in the NHL history. The Battle of Quebec was huge. 82 playoffs. Dale Hunter, yes, that Dale Hunter scoring in Game 7 in under a minute. 1984 saw the Good Friday Massacre, in which almost every Nordican Canadian were fighting, even the spare goalies. 1985, Peter Stastny scored in Game 7 to sink the Habs and get the Nordiques to the conference finals. 1987, Montreal took care of Quebec, and in 1993, Quebec was up 2-0 on Montreal, but failed to capitalize, and Montreal ended up winning the cup. The Nordiques were also known for their ineptness. 3 straight years they had the number 1 overall pick. In 91, they used it for Eric Lindros, who refused to play for Marcel Aubut and his organization, of course, being in Quebec City. Everyone accused him of not wanting to play for a French Canadian team. He ended up going to Philadelphia in a trade that actually helped Quebec out. Ron Hextall helped for a season. Kerry Huffman didn't really do too much. Steve Duchesne didn't really do a whole lot. But the fact of the matter was that Mike Ricci and Peter Forsberg did a lot for the Nordiques franchise. In 95, they were the number 1 seed, looking to win the Stanley Cup for Quebec City. But all of a sudden, they fell in the first round to the 8th seed New York Rangers. And weeks later, they were off to Denver. So the Avalanche were the second team to make Colorado home. The old Colorado Rockies from 1976 to 1981 made Colorado their home and all that, but they had a lot of issues with management wanting to move to New Jersey. Don Cherry couldn't do a thing about it in his 1 year coach. They had the number one draft pick, but had to trade it to Montreal because 2 years earlier they traded away that first round pick. So the Avalanche started off against the Detroit Red Wings. They wore maroon helmets with their white uniforms, which was kind of awkward. No, it was black uniform, black helmets. But yeah, Colorado started out slow, and then they got something in their lap as Patrick Roy having issues with Mario Tremblay after Tremblay refused to pull Patrick Roy until he gave up 9 goals against the high-flying Detroit Red Wings. Decided to leave Montreal, and they found a trading partner in Colorado, and the trade was Roy and Keene to Colorado for Andrei Kovalenko, Marty Rushinsky, and Jocelyn Thibault. So Thibault was basically going to be Montreal's star goalie, and he didn't do so well. Montreal did make the playoffs, but blew 2-0 seriously to the Rangers. Of course, they would not have traded Patrick Roy to Quebec. If Quebec was still at the team, they traded him to Colorado away from Montreal and towards the Western Conference. Colorado boosted themselves. They did well and got themselves to the Stanley Cup Finals against the Florida Panthers, where they won in 4 straight. Yui Krupp, the guy who was not supposed to come back from an injury, which he suffered in the first game of the '95 season, scored the winning goal. 1-0. Colorado won the Stanley Cup. Patrick Roy got another cup, and Joe Sakic was named consummate winner. Colorado would do okay, and in 2001, buoyed by Peter Forsberg's support, because Forsberg was actually out of the 2001 playoffs because he had to have his spleen removed. Colorado rallied around Ray Bourque because Ray Bourque was traded from Boston to Colorado to chase his cup dreams and all that. And so Bourque was ready to receive the cup, and Colorado was down 3-2, but managed to win game 6 and 7. It was one of the most heartwarming game 7s in NHL history, and Joe Sakic gave Ray Bourque the honor to raise the cup after 22 years of trying. Colorado would be decent and all that. The mid 2000s and the early 2010s, they'd be okay. Patrick Roy would come back to coach the Avs, and in 2014, he caught lightning in a battle. Colorado looked pretty strong. They took on the Minnesota Wild in the playoffs, and just like 2003, a little small spoiler, the Wild beat the Avalanche in Game 7 overtime. So Colorado stuck it out. Patrick Roy had a few years, but then left to go back to Quebec with the Ram Colisée and back to the Quebec Ramparts in the Quebec Junior League. He's now the coach of the New York Islanders as of this taping. Yeah, that's big. Colorado has had some great chances. They drafted well. They took Gabe Landeskog from, you know where, Kitchener, and Cole McCarr, and they made some goalie moves. Colorado was the team that stopped Tampa's three-peat chances in 2022 by beating them in 6 games, proving that the Avalanche could win without Patrick Roy. And the big thing for the Avalanche is that they're now the highest percentage of finals won. Colorado's 3-0 in the finals. They have never lost a Stanley Cup final. And they won 3, 96, 01, and of course 22. They're just like the Blue Jays, the Bulls, and the Ravens. The top teams by winning percentage because they've won all their finals and all that. The Blue Jays are 2-0 in the finals. No team that has won 3, no franchise who have won 3 titles has been undefeated. The Bulls are 6-0 in the finals, and the Ravens are 2-0 in the finals. And no team has better than that. San Fran at one time did at 5-0. So yeah, so that's basically the Colorado Avalanche in a nutshell. So let's talk about the 2003 season. So the 2003 Avalanche were their 8th season in existence in Denver, winning their 5th Northwest Division and their 9th consecutive division title overall. Anyway, Bob Hartley was actually fired and replaced by Tony Granato. Granato was a decent player and all that. Anyway, Patrick Roy became the first goalie to get 1,000 regular season games and got the silver stick, which you get for 1,000 regular season games and all that. So he did all that. And then Roy played the last regular season game of his career, April 6, 2003, getting his 551st career win. Colorado nipped Vancouver at the line 105-104 for points. And no, this was not the season that's Todd Bertuzzi cost Vancouver the division. This is 2003. The Avalanche went with 105 points. They were far back of Dallas and Detroit, so they were the 3 seed. In a sense, would face the 6 seed Minnesota Wild, making their first Stanley Cup appearance. Everyone in the West looked good. They had 90 points. Ninth place was 79, so basically there was a lot of parity. So they took on the Minnesota Wild. They lost game one, but then they won the next three. It was like humongous. Colorado was going to take care of Minnesota and prove to them that first time's not a charm. However, they lost game 5 3-2, and then on back-to-back days they played Minnesota. Game 6, they had a shot at it but blew it, and Richard Park put the goal in, and we were going to game 7, which saw overtime and saw Colorado make a mistake, and Andrew Burnett with the perfect deke around Patrick Waugh backhanding it in the net. Minnesota was going on to the second round of the playoffs, in which they would beat the Vancouver Canucks in 7 games, again coming back from 3-1 down in a series. But the Ducks would stop Minnesota's Cinderella run. So anyhow, the Colorado Avalanche blew it, and Patrick Waugh decided to take the time to retire. I mean, dude was around for 18 years. Forsberg went, he was healthy and all that. Patrick Waugh was 35, 13 in his final season. Abisher was not doing so well. He had 227 goals against. Peter Forsberg won the Art Ross for most points in the regular season and the MVP, aka the Hart Trophy. Ray Bork won the Lester Patrick Award. I think that was for an NHL, U.S. NHL thing, but Bork wasn't even playing. Hayduke won the Rocket Richard Trophy for most goals in the season. Patrick Waugh, Rob Blake, and Peter Forsberg were named to the All-Star game, and they had their thing. They made a massive trade with Calgary, sending Chris Drury and Stefan Yell out of there for Dean McCammon, Derek Morris, and Jeff Shantz. They pretty much wanted Derek Morris and had to give up Drury for it. They picked up base protector from Colorado for Radom Fabata, and nothing much else. They lost Darius Kasparaitis to free agency to the Rangers. Patrick Waugh to retirement. Made some moves. In the 2002 draft, they got Johnny Boychuk, a good player for the Calgary Hitmen. The only problem was Boychuk was not really a Colorado icon. He was more of a Boston icon. So anyway, that was all that happened for the 2003 Rockies. I mean, the Avalanche. Hard to see. But anyway, let's talk about what if the Avalanche had moved on to the next round. So we have the 2003 Vancouver Canucks taking on the 2003 Colorado Avalanche. Now, Dallas, the 1 seed, won their matchup, and would face, and the 7 seed Anaheim Mighty Ducks won over Detroit. So it's 1 versus 7. So Dallas and Anaheim would have faced each other no matter what. But Vancouver won their series with the 3 seed. They came back from 3-1 down against the Blues to win game 7, and then the Avalanche in real life blew a 3-1 seriously to lose in 7. But what if Colorado had actually done their job and didn't choke? They would have faced Vancouver. It would have been 3 versus 4, and Vancouver would have had home ice. Wrong. Colorado had home ice because they won the division. So yeah, Colorado would have faced Vancouver. Game 1. So Patrick Waugh and crew won 2-1. Forsberg and Marchment, Brian Marchment of all people, with a goal. Todd Bertuzzi scoring for the Canucks. Kluche and Waugh playing. Waugh, Kluche, Marchand, your 3 stars. Marchment, your 3 stars. I haven't seen Marchand. Game 2 saw the Avalanche win 4-3. It was a tight third period. Tanguay scored to make it 1-0 in the third period. Hayduke scored, Bertuzzi, Scola, Bertuzzi. Naslin tied it at 3, but with a minute and a half left, Derek Morris, who Colorado mortgaged, Chris Drury to get him, scores the winning goal. And lots of players playing like high minutes. Morris, Bertuzzi, and Naslin. Morris. Colorado up 2-0. And the Avalanche would lose game 4-3. Mike Keane scoring for the Avalanche. Ceresis was still around. Morrison and Naslin for Vancouver. Hayduke tied it at 2. Steve Reinpark made it 3-2, but The Canucks in the final minute got goals from Brady Morrison and Marcus Naslund to win the game 4-3. Bates Battaglia, minute 25, and Brian Allen, minute 25. Morrison, Naslund, Reinprack, your 3 stars. So great job by the Canucks. Game 4. What happened in Vancouver? And Vancouver wins again. So it's 2-2, best of 3 coming up. Naslund for Vancouver, then Reinprack. Morrison scored, then Derek Morris, and then Brandon Morrison scored again. So Colorado for the 3rd time had to come back from behind. But then Brandon Morrison at 14:43 of overtime from Naslund and Jovanovski getting a hat trick and getting the Canucks a 2-2 series. Morrison, Naslund, and Cloutier, your 3 stars for Vancouver. I thought Colorado got at least 1 star out of it, but we go to game 5. And the Avalanche continue the home team's winning streak. Bertuzzi scored for Vancouver, then Derek Morris. Milan Hajduk made it 2-1. Matt Cook made it 3-2. 2-2. And then Dan Heino made it 3-2 Avalanche. Bertuzzi scored in the 3rd period, and then Derek Morris at 8:53 from DeFries and Verbata. Of course, this is not accurate because Verbata went to Carolina. Morris, Bertuzzi, and Cloutier are your 3 stars of the game. So we go back to game 6. And it would be the Avalanche who would have won game 6 in Vancouver. Remember who they were. Eric Moore, Messier, Derek Morris, Bertuzzi, and Malik made it 2-2. But then Hajduk and Blake scored. And it's now 4-2. John Sylvan. Morris, Hajduk, and Blake are your 3 stars, and Colorado went on to the next round and faced the Anaheim Mighty Ducks, who in real life took care of those pesky Dallas Stars. I have to say Mighty Ducks because that's what they were called. So Jay Shakir, Carney, and Havlet. Avalanche and Havlet. So yeah, the Avalanche would have had home ice, obviously, because they had more points than Anaheim. Game 1 saw the Avalanche win 2-1. Hajduk and Foot with Anaheim goal by Havlet. Wisniewski and Steve Thomas not getting a lot of time. Base particularly only a few minutes. Forsberg, Shiger, and Waugh are 3 stars of the game. Shiger facing his idol. No major heroes. Game 2 would see the Avalanche win again, 6-3, as Forsberg, Tang, and Tanke scored for Colorado. McDonald made it 2-1, but then the Avalanche scored 3 goals in the second. Blake, Marchment, and Hajduk, as Shiger would do, loose by Martin Gerber. Havlet and Leclerc made it 5-3, but Mike Keane ended it 6-3. So it's Forsberg, Havlet, and Tange. So the Ducks are in deep trouble. They're down 2-0. And Colorado would go to Anaheim and win 3-1. Forsberg, Reinprecht, and Ruchin. Sorry, Forsberg for Bada and Reinprecht was scoring for Colorado. Ruchin for the Duckies. 3-1. As Bob, Reinprecht, and Shigera, your 3 stars. Patrick Waugh, remember who the hell he was. Game 4, Shigera tried to come in net, and the Ducks won the game 4-3. So we go to game 5. Krog and Andy McDonald scored. Then Cheestoff and Havlet. The Ducks were up 4-0. And then gave up 3 goals. Foot, Forsberg, and Reinprecht, but thankfully for Anaheim, time ran out. Shigera did that. Havlet, Foot, and Krog scored. Sakic would suffer an injury. He's not on the top line, so no big deal. Game 5 back in Avalanche country would see the Avalanche lose 5-4. So the Ducks were coming back. Sakura, Korea, and Oselich former Avalanche for the Ducks, for Bada, and Hajduk for the Avalanche. Anyway, Donna made it 4-2. Reinpracht made it 4-3. Cheestov made it 5-3 and chased Waugh from the net. Reinpracht scored, but enough was enough. 5-4. Korea, Reinpracht, and Oselich are your 3 stars. So they go back to Duckland for game 6. And in the end, Colorado loses 3-2 as the Ducks have won and forced a game 7 back in Colorado. Sakura, Ruchin, and Reinpracht. Sakura, Elzelich, and Ruchin scoring for the Ducks. Foot and Reinpracht for the Avalanche. 3-2. Sakura, Shigeru, and Foot, your 3 stars. So now Colorado's got to go back home and hope not to choke against the Ducks in Game 7. And they do. The Colorado Avalanche had it right in the bag to win. Colorado had it in the bag to win the tournament, but they lost. As the Colorado Avalanche lose 3-1, and the Ducks in Game 7 would have eliminated Patrick Waugh and denied Waugh the chance to play for the Cup against Brodeur. No Waugh Brodeur championship. The Ducks would have won Game 7. Steve Bruchin, the hero, with 2 goals. Leclerc also scored. Adam Foote made it 3-1. But Colorado just couldn't stop Shigeru, and Shigeru remembered who the hell he was. Bruchin, Shigeru, and Korea are your 3 stars. But yeah, Bruchin and Shigeru came alive. Remember who the heck they were. Who the heck are you? I'm J.S. Shigeru, bitch. Ducks would have fallen to the Devils, but they would have taken down Colorado. It would have been amazing. And ironically, Paul Korea would have ended up on the Avalanche the next season. So that's kind of weird. But yeah, Patrick Waugh would have retired with a lot of regrets. Anyhow, I'm Jeff Diamond. I do